All right, welcome back to Ducks and Pucks. This is going to be the second episode. This time we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to introduce ourselves first, and then we will go into different stats and news around the league and with the Ducks. Eddie, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Eddie. I was raised and born in London, Ontario. A long way away from Anaheim, but I don't know. I just fell in love with the Ducks. They were the first team I didn't really get a chance to watch them. We don't get a lot of coverage here. We get Leafs games, Habs games, but whenever they played here, I just kind of gravitated towards the team. Um, I grew up watching the '03 Ducks mostly when I was actually old enough to watch hockey. My favorite player growing up was Korea, and I think the game everybody remembers is the '03 finals. That's probably the first game I actually remember watching. I was only about 9 at the time, I believe. So that's the game that sticks in my head for sure. Definitely when the Ducks won the cup too. That's another moment. We got a question from Thomas, one of the writers at Ducks and Pucks, and he asked where we were when the Ducks won the cup. I was at home. As much as I wish I was there, I was only about 14, I think, when they won it. So I was unfortunately here, but I was watching it on the big screen outside. So that was another moment that really sticks in my head. I finally got to go to a game this year, yeah, this year though. I went to go see the back-to-back games, the Ducks playing the Kings, and the Honda Center, and then the Stadium Series. So I thought that was probably the best time to come down. I was finally old enough to get down there, and what a better time to go down there than the first outdoor game in California history. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's really why I like the Ducks. There's not much else about me other than that.
Eddie, as everybody knows, my name's Mike, and born and raised in Anaheim. And basically, the reason why I got into the Ducks is really due to my mom. Back in '93 when the Ducks came about, uh, mom surprised my dad and I, bought us a mini plan. We went to the first game on October 8th, 1993, against the Red Wings. And after that, I was just hooked. I still watch other sports too, but, hockey's number one, and followed it ever since. I was there in the '03 finals when, like you had mentioned, the stuff that had happened with Korea. Very, very exciting. Obviously, winning all the home games was great. And then, of course, losing all the road games to the Devils. And going back also to Thomas's question, I was there when we won it all, which was amazing. Uh, I had a crappy flip phone, which I had photos on, and I don't know where that phone is today. So kind of unfortunate I don't have the photos when I was there. But one of the best moments. My first initial favorite player was Paul Kariya, and then after that it was Teemu Selanne, which most people can tell because that's a lot of the articles that I reference and talk about are Teemu Selanne. And then basically the whole blog came about. It's just there's been other blogs out there, and the websites just come and go. We've seen some in the '03 time and the '07 time when the Ducks won. And there were blogs that would come up and they do really, really, really well for maybe 6 months or a year, and then they would just disappear. So I just came up with the idea of making a blog and getting people involved. And there's some other stuff we'll talk about later on in this episode. But people had asked, what's the big thing with the blog? And I like getting information out to people. Sometimes I talk to people and they have misinformation about something, or sometimes they have good information about something. Like one of the recent articles, someone had told me that there were some discount shirts at the Honda Center. So I went down there and found the shirts and bought them and then put it out there to, all the fans. So that's one of the joys I kind of get out of it, is relaying information to people that maybe some of the bigger, more commercial type blogs don't do. And then some people asked about the podcast. Well, Eddie was the reason for the podcast. So he's the one who approached me with that. And here we are. So you can thank him for the podcast, and you can thank me for the blog.
I gotta ask, was Ryan Kessler down there selling you the shirts at the Honda Center?
No, he wasn't down there. No, I know we saw the video, but no, he wasn't down there at the time. At that, I must have been a day or two too early for that one. Another question too that some people had asked us about the upcoming season two was the games we're looking forward to. You know, obviously I'm looking forward to the home opener. I'll be there against the Minnesota Wild, and I'm looking forward to. You know, we don't know, but this is rumored. They're looking at January 11th, the home game against the Winnipeg Jets, as possibly the game that they're going to do a ceremony for Teemu Selanne retiring. It was in our open house article that Jeremy posted. For those of you that don't know, they have an event every year where they talk about the Ducks and they do a season ticket kind of portion of it too, where you can look at seats and buy seats. And it was mentioned during that time with Tim Ryan, Bob Murray, and Ryan Getzlaff were all there, and they talked about it. They didn't go into specifics, but a lot of us are putting our money on that date to be a date that they're going to do something special for Teemu. And moving on to the recent news for the Ducks, we saw that Trent Yanni became another assistant coach for the Ducks. He moved up from the Norfolk Admirals, where they had a good season last year. They had 40 wins. They made the playoffs. They won the first round, then lost the second round. And the assistant down there, Jared Scaldi, is now going to take over. What do you think as far as the movement with the coaches, Eddie?
It's I don't know too much about Jared Scaldi, obviously, because I try and pay as much attention to the AHL as I can. I don't get much coverage here, but he was assistant coach last year for the Admirals. He's just moving up in the system. I think it's better than going out and grabbing a different guy. It's just for the minor team. I get when you're in the NHL, you want to go out and you grab a different coach from somewhere else. But when you're just promoting guys through the youth system, it's better to have a guy who's been there for the past few years. He knows the players. He just naturally steps into that coaching job. So I don't really think there would be anybody else that they probably thought of. He was probably number one on their list just because he's been in that system for, with Yanni, and he can easily step in there.
I think he'll do well down there. I think Trent Yanni will do well at the Ducks. Some people ask that question. They go, okay, you have Niedermayer as assistant coach, you have Yanni. What's going to happen with Teemu? The open house event, like we talked about it before, they talked about him retiring. And there's been word out there, what's going on? What's he going to do? Is he going to be a coach? Is he going to be in management? Is he going to retire? I don't really see him doing the coaching thing. For some of you out there on Fox Sports West, they had an interview with him and Brian Hayward. He talked about coaching a little bit, but it seemed like his heart was more in management. I don't know. What do you think Teemu lands next year, Eddie?
I see him more in management. I just can't picture him behind the bench. When you look at, I just can't see him getting mad. For some reason, I can't picture Teemu yelling from behind the bench. I see him more management. I don't know how high he can go in management. He's got a ton of hockey experience, obviously, but I don't see him behind the bench. It would have to be in management, if anything, and I'm sure when we've seen some interviews, he seems to be leaning more towards that.
What do you think too? We had our other writer out in Finland, Timo. He mentioned that Jari Kurri and Selanne were talking about doing some kind of cooperation in Jokerit. Do you see Teemu maybe going over there instead and either playing or managing over there?
If he does, I don't really think it's a long-term thing. I'm not inside Teemu's head, but I think he probably would rather work with the Ducks. But I definitely I could see him going back to Finland and working with Jokerit for a few years, and just maybe to get some experience, some management experience before he comes over. But I'm sure they've already got a role slotted in there for him anyway, like right now. So I don't see him staying in Jokerit long term. He's probably already if he right now went to the Ducks, he probably has a job. But if he wants to pick up some experience, then going back to Finland wouldn't be a bad idea.
And we figure that Teemu's gone, so we can figure out what he's going to do later and whatnot. But that leaves another hole on the Ducks roster, and we're trying to figure out where all the players are going to fit in. And Eddie, you got an interview here of Bruce Boudreau on Sportsnet 590. And you want to play that so we can let everybody listen to what Bruce has to say?
Yeah, it's well, it's kind of cool because I think probably most of our viewers aren't from Canada. There could be a few, but yeah, there's an interview on Sportsnet here, which is one of our main sports channels, and he was on Primetime Sports with Bob McCowan here. So we're just gonna queue up an interview with Bruce and Bob from Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Here's one of our favorite people. He's the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. Bruce Boudreau is with us. Hello, Gabby. How are you?
Bob, I'm fine. How are you tonight?
Excellent. Before we get to the future, even the present, let's take a minute in the past. I haven't talked to you since the Los Angeles Kings won the Stanley Cup. Is that like the worst scenario possible for you? Like, is that? I mean, anybody but the Kings.
It's one way it's really bad because, quite frankly, the Kings fans are everywhere in Southern California, and they let us know it every time they see us. And, so that's pretty irritating every time you see them. But on the other hand, you sit there and you go, okay, we lost in 7 games to the Stanley Cup champion. It's easy to go tell the players that we're really close and, not to lose their focus or whatever, and not, it's disappointing to lose, but we're that close, and just to keep going.
You had a good season. You had a great regular season. You looked like you were primed for this postseason. And while you had some success in the postseason, I think you would acknowledge it had moments. It was a struggle. Was it surprising to you that it was a struggle?
No. I mean, whether we like it or not, we always say, geez, I don't want to play this team in the first round. I don't want to play that team. And you don't admit it publicly, but privately you're thinking these things. And Dallas was the team that we didn't want to play because they'd beaten us 2 out of 3 times during the season. And we knew they could really skate and that they'd have a lot of confidence. I thought we played better than them, but it was a really tough series. The Kings series, we thought we were going to win. I mean, we were 4-0-1 against them in the regular season. And, I think one of the things that really hurt us was when they tied it up with 7 seconds to go in game 1. I think that was it took us the whole next game to get over it. And then we won 2 in their building and game 5 back in our building. And I thought we were going to get it done. But as you could tell, their resilience for that team when their backs were against the wall, you could tell they've been champions before.
Coach, a couple questions. You added 2 really good pieces. But in your mind, coaches who would get that close, are you done? Or are you hoping, that to keep moving, there's another piece you want to add?
Well, I think we're probably done right now, but that doesn't mean we can't add during the season. I think right now we have 8 defensemen on one-way contracts and 14 forwards that are 13 forwards on one way and another young player that's really good that would be hard to keep out of the NHL. So I think if there's anything that would be doing right now, it might be subtracting. But I don't know what they're thinking. I'm in Ontario right now, so I don't know what's going on back in Anaheim. But I think with the things we did with getting Kessler and Nate Thompson, I thought were 2 really good pickups. Kessler, I've never coached a team that has had a 1-2 center punch like this, so it's going to be interesting to coach that team. And I think our young guys are matured enough that they're looking for prime time, even with Selanne and Koivu basically retiring.
Yeah, but I thought the adding the 2 pieces was a great positive message to send to the team after what you'd gone through, especially winning the Pacific and getting back in the groove right in training camp.
Absolutely. I mean, those were great pickups, and I think it made our team better. I mean, I'm sure we wouldn't have done it. Bob wouldn't have done it if he didn't think this was going to make our team a better team. I mean, we gave up some good pieces in Benino and Perreault, but I think we definitely made ourselves a bigger and stronger and better team more playoff ready than we were a year ago.
I think everybody knows what you're getting in Kessler and can visualize his potential impact in the lineup. If you acquired Danny Heatley 8 years ago, I think we all would have gone, wow. What do you do with a 33-year-old Danny Heatley who has demonstrated signs that he can't be the guy that he once was and was for a considerable period of time offensively? How do you massage the best out of him?
Well, I mean, I think one thing, I mean, for the first time in an awful lot of years, he's not making a lot of money by NHL standards.
Right.
And if he wants to continue playing, his motivation should be at an all-time high. Thinking of the idea that he might be starting playing with Getzlaf and Perry would make me want to be in the best shape of my life, because it could be the way to get another 5-year contract with a lot of money to end his career if he does what he's supposed to do. I think, on the other hand, that it was a very cheap gamble. You know, I mean, if it doesn't work out, I don't think it cost Bob a lot of money. But we think, I've talked to him a couple times now on the phone, and he's definitely sounds like he can't wait to play. I mean, I know all players talk like that, but I thought his playoffs was the best part of his year. And if that's the kind of guy we get, I think we're going to be fine with him. I mean, we had Dustin Penner last year. He did extremely well on that line. So I think Danny Heatley could do the same thing.
Gabby, when you get a guy like Heatley, do you mentally slot him somewhere in your lineup? I mean, at this point in his career, based upon his stats last year in Minnesota, he looks to me like a third-line guy, maybe a fourth-line guy. Or do you think maybe you start him there and see what happens? Or am I reading you correctly that you might put him up front?
I might. I mean, his whole life, he's been a scorer and a dynamic scorer.
That's true.
And I believe that you put people in positions to succeed. And a lot of times you put a player like Danny Heatley on the third or fourth line, he's going to play like a third or fourth liner. Mm-hmm. But you give him the opportunity and the ball and say, here, let's see what you got. And it won't take long to find out whether he's got it or he doesn't. I mean, because that would be the biggest, boy, if somebody gave me that opportunity when I was playing, I definitely would have taken advantage of it.
Well, who do you put with Kessler? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think we've got a multitude of guys that we could put. You know, Cogliano, Silverberg, and Kessler would be a line that could skate as well as anybody in the league. They can check and score. I mean, it would be, I think, a perfect combination. I don't know if that's the way it'll end up, but it sounds like a pretty good line when I've gone over it in my head.
So you're going to have two lines, arguably as good as any two lines in the National Hockey League. And I'm not asking you for confirmation of that. Let me just say that that's the case. I wonder how cognizant you are even now of the danger of subtly, maybe not deliberately, using those two lines too much during the regular season. Do you have to keep reminding yourself it's a long grind? I got probably 100 games I want to play this year. These 82 have some import, but the 28 or 18 or whatever I play after that are a lot more important. I mean, that's got to play in your head.
You know, Bob, normally I agree with you, but I'm not going to agree with you this time, because anybody that knows me knows I play four lines. If you look at the ice times of Corey Perry, was 18 minutes all last year, and one of the reasons we led the league in goals was because all four lines contributed. And I firmly believe we have to have the same thing this year, is we have to have everybody contributing. What it does do is it makes it easier for me to match lines. with the strength of Ryan Kessler. And I'm taking nothing away from Benino, Koivu, or Perreault, but they were small centers. Now in the big Western Conference, I can put Getzlaf or Kessler, I feel, against any line and have the other line still being able to play against who we want to choose to play against.
Well, listen, before
Does that
we
make sense?
Sure, it does. It makes 100% sense.
Okay. All right.
I'm just, my only thought was, that is there that temptation out there? And I know you play four lines, but I was at that temptation out there. It's like, I got these horses. Sometimes you want to ride those horses.
All right. After that, the interview with Bruce Boudreau, one of the first things he talked about was how one of the young players he would find hard keeping out of the NHL. He didn't really mention who that was. We have a couple ideas. I'll start with who Mike thinks it could be.
Yeah, to me, it just seems logical that it would be Raquel playing that fourth line center role, because it seems like when he talks about the different lines with, Kessler on the second line with Andrew Cogliano and obviously Getzlaf on the first line, it seems like maybe Nate Thompson goes on the third and Raquel on the fourth. He played really, really well last year. And I just find it hard-pressed that Bruce would bench Raquel after doing such a great job throughout the season on that last line, and in the playoffs getting his first goal, and just being a hard worker on offense and defense.
Yeah, I really wish he would have mentioned who it actually was, but he doesn't. He just kind of says one player, one young player. So that could be a number of guys. Could be Edams, DSP, but I really think they have locked up spots on the team when looking at the roster. So it kind of just leaves Raquel, because he's been familiar with Raquel with the 18 games he played with Anaheim last year, so I don't really see it be anybody else, especially when he mentions Heatley's going to play on the left. We've got Cogliano's going to play on the left. I think then that center spot is open, so I think it has to be Raquel as the guy who he's really talking about.
And what do you think about Bruce's comments as far as Heatley? Obviously, he's coming in. He's not making as much as he's used to. He's going to try him out on the first line with the Twins, and then Cogliano, Kessler, and Silverberg on the second line. Me personally, I'm fine with both those. I like that option. I think that if he starts the season that way and he rolls that way for the first few weeks, and it works out, I don't see that being a problem. You've got two really good lines, two lines that can sustain offensive pressure, two lines that can play decent defense and win faceoffs. I wouldn't be upset at all with those two going forward as the first two top lines.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like he's calling them out too. Some of the two of the quotes he said in there, it's the first time he's not making a lot of money, and then his motivation should be at an all-time high. So he's really saying you better perform. We want you to be back to scoring 50 points. So he's gonna. It sounds like he's gonna give him that shot. He also said it should be a way. His play should be a way to get another 5-year contract. That should be his motivation. So I think he will come in motivated. I don't know if he listened to the interview with Boudreau. I highly doubt it. But he's got the Boudreau's right with the motivation. He said he's gonna possibly test him out on that first line. If he does, and if he's motivated and he plays well, he can definitely put up a good enough points to stay on that line. And then he's gotta pick up the defensive slack a bit. He's been a little obviously weak in that end. He doesn't back check hard. You can't put all that pressure on Perry and Getzlaf because they've had line mates who will come back. Penner came back and played defense, but it seems like Boudreau's gonna play him on the first line, and then, like he said, if you play him on the third and fourth line, he'll play like a third and fourth line player, and he believes he's more than that. He said he's always been a high scoring player throughout his career, so I think he's right in that. In fact, if you're gonna play Heatley on the third and fourth line, you're gonna he's gonna perform and put up numbers like a third and fourth line player. You saw that in Minnesota last year when he played with Coyle and Niederreiter. That's obviously not a top line. That's a third line. Yes, he didn't perform with Parise, but you're going to play him on the third and fourth line, he's going to act like it. So if you give him a chance on that first line, hopefully he's motivated to actually do well.
And if he plays on that first line and does well, how many goals do you see him getting? Me personally, I think if he's on the first line, healthy, plays well, has the chemistry, all those intangibles as well, I see him putting up at least 20 goals on the first line.
Yeah, I see him sniffing 20. I don't Bob McCown on that interview, he said that he could possibly they wouldn't be surprised if he reached 30. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I really like the Heatley signing. If he reaches 30, that's a
Outstanding.
bargain of the season. If he reaches 30, I don't see him reaching that. I think 25 maybe at the highest. But he's a big guy. You don't lose that scoring touch. He's obviously a little bit slower than he used to be. He's definitely not going to get 50 again. But 20, half that, I'd be fine with that. You wouldn't find any complaining from me.
And what do you think about, he talks about the second line, Cogliano playing wing with Kessler and Silverberg as that second punch, basically, as he talks about, 1-2 punch at the center position, but basically 1-2 punch for the top two lines. Do you think that second line is what you'd roll with, or is there something
I didn't have that down. I actually had those two on different lines, but when he mentioned it, I just kind of looked at it more, and I actually really like that as a line. They can all skate. Obviously, we know Cogliano can skate. Kessler's a really good skater. Silverberg's a really good skater. They all can check. They're big guys. Cogliano's not too big, but he's one of those gritty kind of Brendan Gallagher players where he'll get in there and he'll still throw a few checks, and they can score. Silverberg has a great release. Kessler has a great shot too. Cogliano showed that he could score last year. So they bring three aspects to the game and they all have that on one line. So, and he said he would. That's the line he had in his head that he liked. It's not 100% on paper, but usually if the coach likes the line, you could be a safe bet to say that this line is going to be used at least once in the season. And I could see them doing well. It looks like a really, really good line to put out there on the second line.
I agree. For me, the second line would be a good two-way line. You got people that can go down there and score, Cogliano, Silverberg, and Kessler, and then you've got them that can rush back and check. So to me, it's a good two-way line, especially right after the top line.
Yeah, it's gonna be a line that is gonna tire a lot of teams really quickly because these guys can move really fast. Like you put this line against anybody, and they're gonna be quicker than it could be one of the quickest lines in the NHL easily.
Yeah, the second line is definitely going to have a lot of speed. And talking about speed, we're going to look at some of the younger players on the team. And one of the rookies that I look to step up this year is Devontae Smith-Pelly. Last season, he played just 19 games in the regular season. He had 2 goals. But then in the playoffs, he stepped up. He had 12 games that he played in, majority with the Twins, and he had 5 goals to lead the team. So, I'm looking for him to step up and play. If Heatley doesn't work out in the first line, I could see DSP up there. If Heatley does work out on the first line, great. Obviously, we've already covered that, and I'm happy with that. But I could see him, playing majority of the season, at least 60, 70 games and putting up 20 goals in the season. I mean, he's kind of the rookie that I'm looking to this season to really make an impact.
Yeah, we don't have there is a lot of young guys jumping up, but it's not like it's a ton. We have Devontae Smith-Pelly, Emerson Edom, Ricard Raquel. I believe that's it. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those are the only 3 guys jumping up, aren't there?
Yeah, those are the primarily the 3 main guys that we have. I mean, as far as on the offense, those are the big.
Yeah, like the defense is set. Edom, I mean, Lindholm and Vatanen had their rookie seasons last year.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's and I guess Edom is having his first full season with the team, but I don't think he can be considered a rookie anymore. He's played 29 games last year. I believe he's played more before this. I guess it's his first full season. Devontae Smith-Pelly and Emerson Edom might not be able to be considered rookies, but with the team, we're gonna label them as rookies. So, but yeah, Edom he played 10 more games than Smith-Pelly last year. He had 29 games and 11 points, and he only played 4 in the playoffs before he went back down to Norfolk. This could be a season where he's gonna have an elevated role. Selanne's gone, Koivu's gone, so a third line role possibly for Edom this year. It's yet to see where he's gonna play. Boudreau didn't really mention Edom unless he was that young player he was talking about. And then Raquel, I think Raquel's the most intriguing guy because he's going to be the real natural rookie coming in the team, playing 18 games this year with 4 assists. He's definitely going to have to make a huge jump, and if he's going to actually play third line center, he could have a really productive year. He's got to get, obviously add some goals to that and had a few more points, but if he puts up 30, 40 points, I'd be over the moon. I would definitely be more than happy.
Yeah, as far as those young guys go so far, I'd be happy with all of them, stepping up and getting in that point total that we've been talking about for the next coming season. And, another guy that I look at to break out next season would be Patrick Maroon. He played on the top line with the Twins last year. He played on other lines as well. But he had a pretty good stretch for 62 games. He had 11 goals and 18 assists. And I could see him coming in next year with Selanne gone and filling that spot, at the left wing position and coming out with at least 20 goals. Definitely.
Yeah, and he had about 40 more penalty minutes than everybody else too. So, he's going to be that big body guy again. And 29 points for a player like that is definitely productive. And if he puts that up again, and that was only in 62 games. So, if this is the evidence of how Bruce Boudreau likes to roll his lines. So, he could, if he comes out and has a breakout season, that'd be perfect. And I think, Vatanen, he had a great season last year, only played 48 games. He could come out and have a breakout season. You could argue that last season was a breakout season for Lindholm, putting up 30 points in 78 games. He could come out and have an even better season. Cam Fowler as well, if he comes out and has a really consistent season. Kessler, any number of guys could come out and have a breakout season this year. And but yeah, like you said, I think Patrick Maroon is the most intriguing one because he seems to be working on his scoring and crashing the net, which we like to do. And when he played on the first line, it's going to be interesting to see how he does not playing on that first line and see if he can keep up the point total. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
And as far as players having comeback years too, I would say currently on the Ducks, I'd kind of look at Silverberg maybe as a comeback season. He came out and he started out really well, scored several goals early on, injured his wrist again, and he ended up playing 52 games, 10 goals, 13 assists, not bad numbers, but I think a lot of us expected a lot more in that first couple weeks. So I think if he stays healthy, he's definitely a player that also could drop 20 goals, maybe 40, 50 points next year too.
Yeah, especially playing with Ryan Kessler. If that line comes to fruition under what Bruce Boudreau said, that could be a really lethal line, and Silverberg could be the ultimate benefactor from that pairing being together.
Oh yeah, that line of those three could really, really take off, especially after the top line going out there. Another comeback season is obvious when we talk about this is Heatley. He wasn't with the Ducks last year; he's with the Wild. He only had the 12 goals that everybody likes to point out, but he had 20-goal seasons a couple years before, 30-goal seasons before that. And I would look at him too, another person to really step it up. If he gets on the first line and plays well, I think he can take off too.
Yeah, he's probably the number one candidate for comebacks. He just gets looked on so negatively for one bad season. We know players who will go a couple seasons having really bad seasons, and within their own fan bases they won't be looked bad upon. But Heatley just gets this overall hate towards him. We get it. He's not a physical player. He's not going to go back and backcheck. He's not a great puck possession player, but when you've consistently scored over 50 points in your career and then you don't do it for one season and you're just completely hated on by a lot of people out there, he's the number one candidate for a comeback season, and he's got all the motivation to do it for sure.
Yeah, I think this season's going to be an exciting one for the Ducks fans. I mean, just with all the young players that with their rookie year or second year, however you want to categorize it, Heatley coming in, Kessler coming in, it's really going to be some exciting times, I think, this season coming up.
Yeah, it's it's a nerve-wracking season in a way because we don't know really what's going on in net either with Anderson and Gibson. When we're talking about rookies, with Anderson having is he gonna have, if he's gonna come back and have the same kind of season he had, Is Gibson going to get the start? And is he going to break out and have a 30-win season? It depends really who starts, and it's one of those seasons where we haven't really seen where it's kind of uncertain. There's a lot of pressure. Like the Ducks have been put in is going to be really good, but then you got those questions in that for especially, and then there's always the questions we've had on D. So it's going to be a really interesting season to watch. Kind of nerve-wracking in the beginning, I would put it for most fans, but it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a filling out process, definitely in October, November, and getting all the lines set up, like you said, getting the D set up, goalie, all those things. But I really think that they get all that down, hopefully December at the latest, and just really pile through January and down the final stretch. I mean, I don't see them not, ending up in the number 1 or number 2 seed, in the Western Conference. It just the way the moves have gone in the off season, like they were talking about and part of that interview that we didn't post up on here is they talked about the teams making the most moves, and the Ducks are the team that has made the most beneficial moves and improvements in the off season.
Yeah, and maybe next to Dallas being that the other team that's made the most moves, but they haven't caught up to Anaheim in overall skill of the team. And LA, there's always the phrase that gets thrown on championship teams don't have to make a lot of moves, but the LA Kings, obviously they didn't have to make moves. Their big move was re-signing Gaborik. Chicago brought in Brad Richards, but we're right up there now. We got we got a lot of questions in goal. We're not but we're in a better position than some other teams are in that. St. Louis is Allen and Elliott, so it's gonna be scary. I think for the first game, in my opinion, watching Anderson or Gibson get the start. But I think it's gonna work out for the end of the season.
Definitely, and looking around the NHL, that we talked about some of the moves by the other teams out there as well. And Nashville signed Ribideau and Roy, and both they're pretty good now at the center position. How do you think Nashville pans out now?
Yeah, especially with Mike Fisher going out for such a long amount of time. These aren't really the guys Nashville wanted. It was rumored they were going after Joe Thornton, and I think that was probably their number one option. But that would have had to been in a trade. They would have had to give up a lot of pieces. This is good business, but it's not great business. He's in regression for sure. He's 31 now. He's not putting up the same numbers he did with Buffalo. His point totals seem to just continuously go down. He could be a candidate for a comeback season in Nashville, but I don't really see it. Unless he's on a line with James Neal, the offense in Nashville drops down considerably. So who he's playing with could dictate how his season went, but he was on a team in St. Louis last year who has a lot of scoring options. He only put up 37 points, which isn't terrible, but in a team that's looking for a number 1 guy, these two are number 2, number 3 guys. And Mike Ribeiro consistently put up at least 40 points in the last 6 or 7 seasons. So he's probably going to be the guy that's up there, but he's kind of unreliable in his own end. So Nashville's going to be an interesting team to watch because they've been up and down, sort of like the Islanders. They've made the playoffs, then they don't make the playoffs, then they're near the bottom of the league. So they're kind of all over the place for the last few years. Obviously these are good additions to the team. I kind of want to see how they're going to actually affect a team that's always been limited on offense.
As you mentioned, Nashville is going to be interesting to watch. They've historically had a really good defense on their team. With Fisher out, though, it's going to be interesting to see how the offense pans out. And speaking of other teams that are looking to make some moves, we were looking at Chicago, and they're shopping around Johnny Oduya. And I've seen some Ducks fans make some posts about, hey, what about this guy? We should go pick him up as another defensive player. But honestly, in my opinion, I would say no. I like the lineup we have with the D-men right now. Not to say that Oduya isn't a good player or anything of that nature. I don't see him fitting into our defensive system in Anaheim.
Yeah, I'm not. I really would not want Johnny Oduya. And nothing against Oduya. He's been a good player with Chicago. We got Clayton Stoner in here for that reason. And trading for a guy like Oduya would make really no sense at all. Like if we're gonna grab a guy, we want a top four guy, a bigger top four guy, somebody like a Brent Seabrook or a Yarmulson, Tyler Myers kind of guy. And I don't really see those guys being available and at a price where I think it would be worth it. We have a good enough defensive core right now that we should at least give a shot at working together with the addition of Clayton Stoner. So yeah, nothing against Oduya. I really wouldn't want to see him added to the team.
And you and I agree on that one. And, another player that Ducks fans have talked about, too, was Evander Kane out of Winnipeg. He's been shopped around, too. And done well. Last season he had 41 points, throughout his handful of years that he's been playing. He's been averaging almost 20 goals a year. But again, the problem with him is we already went and got Heatley at a bargain deal. I just don't see the Ducks trying to trade some youth for another left winger. What do you think, Eddie?
You've been linked with Kane for a while, as that guy who could really fit with Getzlaf and Perry. He's a big guy. He's a physical power forward guy who can score. But at the price that I've seen been thrown around for a guy who's not even really close to a point per game. Theodore's name has been thrown in with Raquel and like a first rounder or three young guys or like Lindholm and a prospect. Like for Evander Kane, I'd rather pass.
All right, I agree with you, Eddie. We should just pass on Evander Kane. And looking at all the teams, the Vegas odds, they have the Hawks 7-1 to win next season, the Kings at 9-1. The Bruins 10-1, and then the Ducks and the Penguins 12-1. How do you think the teams stack up? Do you think anybody does better than expected or worse?
I think a team to watch out for next year would probably Dallas for sure, picking up Spezza. Minnesota with Vanek, but they both made the playoffs last year. Edmonton, we've been all looking at for the past few years. When are they gonna? For one of the rookies and their first round picks that they've accumulated going to do anything. I don't think it's this year. Nashville could be one to watch. James Neal, Seth Jones' second season. With Ribeiro and Roy going there. It's a tough Western Conference though. I don't really see them. St. Louis as well with no Halak and no Miller. They've got Allen and Elliott. That's going to be interesting to watch. On the Eastern side, I really want to see how. I think Columbus is going to be another surprise. Tampa Bay with Duran could take them to a next level. I think that's really Toronto again. They're probably going to disappoint. Other than that, I don't really see any surprises.
Yeah, I don't see too many. I think I agree with you in the West. I'm kind of looking at Minnesota and Dallas just to see how they do. They both made the playoffs. They both played tough in the West. Those are kind of my two teams for fans to keep their eyes on. Looking at the East, I'm curious about Columbus. They gave Pittsburgh a hard time. I'm kind of curious to see how they come out. I'm curious, too, to see how Pittsburgh comes out. We talked about Crosby last time. Looks like he's not going to have surgery now that they're saying. I mean, obviously but I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to do with all the shakeup. Obviously Baalsma being out over there. I'm also curious to see how Detroit does. Detroit barely made it last year. It'll be just kind of interesting to see if they can come back a powerhouse team, or are they going to, just be a 7th, 8th place team?
Yeah. Detroit's kind of one of those teams. I was rooting for them not to make the playoffs last year, not to offend any Detroit fans, but they have that huge streak. They're getting older, but they've always got the horses. Datsuk, Zetterberg. They like to take the time with the youth. They've got Nyquist, Tatar coming up, so I think they'll make the playoffs again. Probably just slip in like they did last time. I don't see the playoff landscape changing much. A lot of the teams outside the playoffs either lost players or didn't do too much, other than Nashville. No one really in the East did a whole bunch to make the lineup any better. So yeah, the playoff landscape could really be exactly the same next year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think it's going to be similar. And moving along, another section that we added to our podcast is going to be fan questions. So anybody out there has a question, you can hit us up at DucksNPucks@mail.com. Or obviously you can hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, and all the other social media avenues are out there. But we're going to take some questions and answer them. Going on with the moves and everything going down in the off season, we had Jimmy out of Los Angeles asking, does he see the Ducks trying to get another free agent or a trade? Based upon the interview that we played earlier, it looks like Boudreau is not going to do any kind of free agency moves with the Ducks. I mean, obviously Murray's the one that would make that decision, but it just doesn't seem like, at least the free agency part, seems like the Ducks might be good to go. What do you think, Eddie?
I hope so. I really hope they don't add trade maybe depending on who it is, but I don't want to give up, any of these young guys that we've coming up like Theodore and Raquel, and these are the guys that teams are gonna want for a guy. Like the only move I see us making, if any, is for a top 4 defenseman because it's really all we need. And at the price that they're going for, and that a lot of teams have been rumored to put out there, I don't really see it being a good choice. And I'm pretty sure Murray's done. I don't think, and the only way we'd make a trade or free agency is 100% done in my opinion. Free agency is done. Trading, not till maybe halfway through the season if it's needed by injury or just because we're not doing well in a certain position. But I think the lineup we have going in, like Boudreau said, we have 13, 14 one-way forwards, 8 one-way defensemen, 2 one-way goalies, and a young guy he finds hard to keep out of the NHL. So making a trade or signing another player really doesn't make any sense right now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see them doing anything right now until, like you said, we get the preseason underway, get the beginning of the season, get the lines, and just kind of see how everything goes. I mean, I think, the Ducks can come out strong like they did last year and just ride it. I don't really see us trying to, make another move. Like you said, some of the top defensemen out there, I mean, some people are like, hey, let's get, Weber. It's like, okay, that's great, but what are you going to
Let's go get Weber. Let's go get. I want to know who said that. Yeah, let's go get Weber. Let's give up everybody on the team. Come on.
Exactly. I mean,
Oh
you
my
gotta
God.
look at some of these, some of the people, like you said, they're throwing out these names, these high up,
Let's go get Crosby when we're at it. Come on.
I mean,
This guy's top 3 in the league in defensemen, so.
Exactly. So, some of the names, I mean, yeah, would it be great to get another top 4 defenseman? Sure, of course it would be great. But like you said, the price is just, it's just too much right now if we were going to try to go get somebody and give up, quality youth in exchange. And our second question came from Alexander from Huntington Park in California. Again, assuming that the Ducks do try to make a trade for a big defensive player, he's saying, if we had to give up a forward, do you give up Palmieri or do you give up Edom? I wouldn't want to give up either one. Let me preface it that way. But because this is the question and it's one or the other, I would lean a little bit more towards Palmieri and keeping Edom. Strictly based more on a positional type thing. We don't have as many players at the left wing position, and I just think at this point in time, it's a close call. But I would think Edom would have a little bit more value for the team in the long haul.
Yeah, it's a hard decision. They're around the same age. Edom is quicker than Palmieri. Palmieri is more physical than Edom. Palmieri's been with the team longer. He's put up more points. To say who has more value right now, I guess it would be Palmieri. But if we're asking who I'd rather go, I think it would just, like you said, with Edom being able to play left wing, and we don't have a lot of guys being able to play left wing. I see Edom being that third line left wing. So Palmieri kind of, if he doesn't play third line right wing, then where does he fit? So if we were going to make a trade, it'd probably be Palmieri I'd let go. But I'd rather keep both of them. But for the sake of the question, yeah, Palmieri I would let go, but at a slim margin compared to Edom.
Definitely, and those are the couple questions that we had time for this week. Like I said, continue to hit us up on the email or social media. We'll answer more questions as each week comes along. And basically, we're going to provide you with some updates too. Each week, when we make some more changes, we did some new things on the blog this last week. We added a section that has the podcast on there, has a little brief summary of everything. You can go in there and click on that to see basically what we talked about for each podcast, and it'll link you now into iTunes. We'll have both iTunes and YouTube formats available for you to listen to the podcast. Another section we added was honoring military heroes, which Tyler, our writer from Texas, kind of approached me about, and that's why it came about. He had a good buddy of his that passed away overseas, unfortunately, almost on the anniversary date of his other friend that had passed away 3 years ago. So he had approached me and said, "Hey, Mike, I'm having a tough time. I would like to write about it." And I said, "Sure, fine. If it's going to help you ease your pain, whatever you need to do to help you. Some people it is in writing." So decided to make that section, and I thought it was appropriate. Because of the Duck home games, they honor military personnel every game. Most of the time, the third period. I know in the playoffs, there's sometimes the second period, but it's definitely something that we need to do because we wouldn't be able to even talk right now about the sport or play the sports that we enjoy. It's not just to say U.S. military, but that's military everywhere. Yeah, and another section we did was the opinion in the fan poll section. We saw some other people out there talking about players and comparing players. So Eddie had the first one with the Twins, versus the Taves and Kane matchup with Chicago.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing. I think probably not weekly. I don't. It depends on how many we get in, but we're gonna start doing head-to-head kind of comparisons to kind of ease the transition from off season to the start of the season. The first one was obviously the one I did was Getzlaf and Perry, and Taves and Kane. We've got another one coming up with Lindholm and Carlson, kind of making a comparison, not so much a head-to-head. But yeah, we're gonna do a couple of those throughout the off season, and pump out a couple more head-to-heads, and hopefully get some good comparisons in.
Yeah, and that's again where the fans can come in. If you have someone you want us to compare, we'll do a fan poll and we'll throw it out there. It could be two Duck players, it could be two non-Duck players, or a Duck player versus someone else on another team. Whatever you the fans think of, just send it to us and we'll pump out a poll and see what people think. Another thing we're going to start, obviously, when the season comes up, we're going to have another category on fantasy hockey. I know a lot of you out there play that. So Tyler is the one that kind of came up with that idea, and he's going to head that up and basically give you stats and news and injuries and all that good stuff so that you can keep up on your fantasy hockey leagues as well as the real deal. And, the website's been doing well lately. We've had some popular articles lately. Obviously, Selanne is always a big topic. He comes up. That one has been out there for a while. And Hiller's been the other big issue, too, that came up. Obviously, a lot of people thought that he had said some things that he didn't say. We were able to get that verified again through Sportsnet. The audio, I was able to upload that up onto or at least the link to the audio up on our website. And that was, wow, I mean, that was one of the most popular articles we had recently. And again, that's, why I really wanted to have this website, because like I said, there's times that information comes out or rumors come out there, and I like to either get the rumor confirmed or denied, or if there's some other good information, to get it out there to you, the fans, because sometimes, like I said, you don't see all this information in the commercial sites. They'll talk about stats and trades and news, but they don't talk necessarily about more localized information, and that's really kind of what we're trying to do here with this blog and podcast, is to bring you all the big important news, but also to bring you some analysis and important information from the local scene here in Anaheim. And lastly, I just want to thank one follower of the week, Everything Hockey. You can follow them. It's Everything with EVRYTHING Hockey, and they really help promote our website. They have a lot of good funny videos and pictures, and I just suggest that you go out there and follow them for a good laugh and hockey stats.
Yeah, don't forget to check us out on iTunes, guys. We took us a long time to put it on iTunes, so we're a pretty big deal now, guys. So check us out on iTunes. Hit us up on Twitter, at DucksNPucks, at EddieJones20. Don't forget to check out the blog. This has been the second episode of Ducks and Pucks podcast. We're gonna bring out another one on Sunday. So yeah, thanks for listening.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.